Okay. Hello, everybody. We are today joined by the fantastic Lydia, who is going to talk about navigating her tech career and how you can navigate yours as well. I think we've known each other now since, is it 2020? I met you for the first time when
Yeah,
you joined one of our first ever mentor programs, and you have been thriving ever since, and I'm sure before that as well. Absolutely incredible to have you. I'm going to hand over to you to give a bit of an introduction to yourself for everybody that's here today.
thanks, Charlene. And yeah, it's been a journey with CVF. And I guess that's why, being part of this community is really important because joining this community was sort of my first journey into just understanding what I want to do, how I want to do it, and just knowing that I've got that community behind me. So yeah, the power of community. So I'm Lydia. I'm just actually got a new job as a data center systems engineer at GitHub.
Congratulations.
I actually start at the end of this month. So I've just been doing all the, admin stuff around it. I started off my career, as Charlene said, self-taught, learning Linux, and then AWS. And then I joined communities like Coding Black Females, GTA, as well as Neo. And I just continued upskilling. And as Charlene mentioned, I done their first cohort of their software engineering fellowship, where I was one of 10 Black women, five from UK, five from US. And it really kind of showed me that I didn't necessarily want to just do back end or system administration per se. I wanted to kind of really be using programming to solve problems. And I came from a non-traditional background, working in the public sector. I graduated in criminology, sociology, and public health. Worked in that sector for 10 years, stakeholder management, program management. And, working in a non-profit sector sometimes can have a lot of issues, bureaucracies, especially around systems implementation to make, humans work better. So there was just a lack of that. And my first introduction to systems or technology that could be useful was Salesforce and really transferring database management into that. And just from a personal point of view, I come from Kenya and I've always been, very Afrocentric, sorry, and just going back to see how technology had advanced Kenya in terms of, financial inclusion with a solution called M-Pesa, I was blown away, and that's what also encouraged my journey into tech. So yeah, and for me, because I knew I was a career changer, I was quite strategic in kind of going for big tech like Amazon, because I felt for me, it's not just about getting that job. It's really about what do I want to gain? What is my end goal? And then working backwards. So for me, it's always about thinking about what is it a learning point at this moment? Is it just to increase your income? Is it building your network? So really kind of defining that as part of your job process. And that's why I applied for Amazon. I just felt like I can learn, have more resources to learn and build a network, and which has been a really great source. Because I have a alumni of engineers, over 120, who are actually seek for information in terms of feedback for what they would advise junior engineers or their younger self. And they gave me some really good stuff, which I've included in like a takeaway sheet. So yeah, so that's generally
Awesome. Thank
me,
you.
an
And
overview.
you've had a fantastic journey. And I remember reading your first application when you signed up for that first program and genuinely watching everything you've been doing from developing your own skills, developing everything that you've been doing, but also supporting every community that you've been in as well has been fantastically instrumental. Knowing that you're always there to support other people in the community is so powerful as well. One reason that, when you signed up to do this, I was actually really keen to hear more about how you landed interviews at GitHub and AWS. I saw you talking about it in the WhatsApp group, and I was like, let's make sure we can get that shared with everybody else. So, what did
Mhm.
you do? How did you land those interviews, and what helped you stand out?
So yeah, as I've mentioned, It was about being intentional initially. As I said, I went for certain companies. I thought about what do I want to achieve. And as I said, initially, I was on learning and really just trying to build a network and having the resources to be able to support me. So part of that was just building community, upskilling, just continuous upskilling and networking. And one of the things that I did implement was I kept like a rolling document of everything that I was learning, every problem that I was solving, and the skills that I was developing. And I guess that became my North Star during like interviews because I could really talk about um things that I've done and leveraging LinkedIn. So I really worked on my LinkedIn in terms of just commenting on people and giving before I gain, really. As I said, being part of communities like Coding Black Females, asking for referrals. And I would say for me, your network is your net worth.
Mhm.
Be visible intentionally, not just being visible for the sake of it. So, for example, right now, I'm sort of rebranding and recurating my social media. I don't want it to be necessarily just about, hey, pictures. It's really about what value can I add. And as I'm on this new journey towards, having a specialism in cybersecurity and, getting into GitHub, I felt like that's more of what I want to channel my social media. So more insight, advice, and guidance just around that journey into tech. Um, so yeah, and I guess with GitHub, one of the things that really surprised me was it was I guess for me it was a mix of preparation and presence. My presence I felt really stood out. I leaned heavily onto my personal brand. I guess what made me stand out wasn't just my technical ability, it was my story, really. Um, yeah, and I think
Yeah. I
so
think
yeah,
I was going to say the great things about what you've said are kind of around that networking piece, which is so important. So you've been a really key part of lots of communities. You make sure people know what you're after, but then also you utilize the services that are there and the opportunities that are there as well. And I guess with that element of you saying, you have always been yourself,
yes.
that authentic element that people always talk about, that we're always like, I feel like we always have these conversations around being your authentic self when you go for jobs and when you do all this stuff, but it's actually true. And doing that makes a huge amount of difference as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you went for, say, the interview at GitHub, what was the structure of the technical interviews? And AWS, GitHub, any others that you've had, what sort of structure can people expect for those sorts of interviews?
Um, So AWS, everyone talks about the leadership principles. And to be honest with you, actually working at Amazon, I've really, really understood. I think the leadership principles are actually amazing. And they keep growing. But I think there's the 12 ones were really because they're actually quite applicable in life. Bias for action, insist on high standards. They're all such applicable ways of thinking, mindset tools. So with Amazon, the leadership principles were key and really kind of implementing them into your sort of your star format examples. So I, for example, would have three examples under insist on high standards in terms of where I've shown that in the star format. Um, Involved, yeah, technical questions around infrastructure networking. So one day was like 5 hours. So there was 4 stages with Amazon, and they have this part where it's called an on-site interview, where it's 5 hours, and it's just back to back, obviously with 20 minutes in between for a breather, where you're kind of being questioned technically, and that's really just understanding where you are technically. I would say sometimes we get so nervous around all of these interviews, and generally you just see an interview as a conversation where you're trying to get to know the organization and they're trying to get to know you. Definitely prepare in terms of understanding what the requirements are so that you can bring your best self. Because I think a lot of the nervousness comes from you questioning yourself. It's not about you being perfect. It's really about showcasing your breadth on knowledge, and also bringing your soft skills to the table. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons. GitHub had 5 stages, by the way. Amazon have 4. So big tech involves a lot of stages, and it can be overwhelming, and you can kind of feel like, oh, I'm just nearly there, and then you get told that you haven't made it. But for me, I go into every situation as this is an opportunity to learn. Regardless of the end result, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to keep a rolling document, my document. I go everywhere with it about what key questions, and just because this is all like life is a continuous process of learning, so you should just take every opportunity as a learning, prepare, but also just bring yourself. So a big lesson for me was technical interviews aren't about perfection. They want to know how you think. It's okay to ask questions, explain your thought process, and show how you collaborate in real life. And actually, in terms of GitHub were really good in giving feedback in that moment. So in after the interview, I knew I was gone. I was I was put through to the next stage. They were very open and honest in that moment. So on my coding interview, one of the feedback that I really got was they liked how I problem solved, and I was talking out loud about my logic, what I was doing, how I was doing it. So that's really important. I guess, yeah, just practice articulating your impact and decision process. So it's not just about your technical skills, it's about your soft skills, which is about your mindset.
That's really valuable actually, and it really resonates with. So we had graduation at AWS a couple of days ago, and they were talking about the exact same thing. So like the leadership principles for us are extremely really key, and if you know them, it's going to help you out a lot in the interview. I had a quick follow-up question actually, based on what you've got here about the STAR format. We talk about it a lot. I think it's situation, task, action, and result. Is that right? Do you have any tips that somebody could use to practice the STAR format before an interview? What have you done to practice in that in the past?
I kind of use storytelling a lot because I find that sometimes it can be quite stale and formal. So really trying to kind of think about how you talk. When you are talking to someone, you have to give them the foundation. You have to tell them what the situation is. You
Mm-hmm.
have to tell them what you did, and then you know what was part of that, the action, and then the result. So really and truly just think about it as a conversation and really turn it into storytelling, because we do this every day. It's just that we formalize it, why then we start overthinking about it. But generally just think about it, it's a conversation, and there is normally the conversation has a pattern. And
Yeah.
that's just what the star format is. And for me, I just started to take a step back and stop being so serious about these things and really think about, like, I talk a lot, as you can say. So seeing that as my as a positive thing, and then, seeing how I can kind of make things more, just part of, like, this is what you do anyway. You explain yourself, you sell yourself when you're online. We're doing it every day. It's just this idea of interview scares us. So just take it back to basics. Like, this is the format of a conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really useful. Just knowing that an interview is actually just a conversation between two people. And if you can tell a story about what you've done, then that would really help you in that moment as well.
Yeah,
Um,
and I just want to add one
yeah.
thing, sorry, to highlight the importance of soft skills.
Mhm.
So in terms of my I think I can do it, I'll do it in the next part.
Yeah, let's move on actually. So let's talk about soft skills and what how much of that fare in the interview process. I would expect that GitHub, AWS, companies like that would have actually massive technical elements. Was soft skills actually just a bigger side of that?
I would say yes, obviously the technical skills are really about, can you do the job that they're asking for? So they
Mhm.
need to kind of test that, or they need to know exactly where you're at, because sometimes they have the resource, like just at GitHub and AWS, they might have the resource. They don't want you to know everything, but actually, like, how are you thinking about problems? I think that's more what the technical journey is about. Like, how do you think about problems? And then how do you utilize resources to be able to solve those problems, whether that's people, whether that's systems, and whatever that may be. So I think for me, the biggest surprise was just how important soft skills were. Because I've always valued them, coming from a public sector background, working with young people, different stakeholders. So I understood the importance of relationship building, communication, leadership skills, and really to be able to get people from A to B. That's what I used to do, so run social mobility programs. So for me, it was at GitHub, the final decision came down to me and another candidate. In terms of my feedback, when I got feedback from, was really great feedback, actually, very, very like full. We were neck and neck in terms of our technical ability. So we had to then take it to the director. The director had to make the final decision. So I was literally full, I was made it. And then they were like, oh, you got to speak to the director. So I wasn't really at the end. I had to like, still show up. And I just decided in that moment, let me tell my story, like who I am, where I've come from, what the experience that I've had and why GitHub. And I've done it in like a story form arc. I kind of just came in like my name's Lydia, and my story is one of purpose, perseverance, and overcoming challenges. And that's the scene that I set. Right. So we were neck and neck technically. They said that we both showed our technical skills, but why they chose me is that they could see that I was a better long-term hire. They could see that I brought value outside of just the technical skills. I can do work, and GitHub being a remote first company, I guess they need those people that are going to, build those relationships, that are going to, do the extra work to really make the team form and really think about where's the team going. And I'm that way inclined. I just kind of think big. Some would say I'm a visionary. I wouldn't. But yes, I think it came down to my soft skills, my leadership skills, and that's why I was chosen.
I would say, just to interrupt, you are a visionary. You are making a huge difference and you're really impacting people. I love the fact that it looks as though that final quote or the lesson that you took away from that again is about being yourself. And in reality, if you can't be yourself in a company that you're going to end up in, why would you want to be there anyway? Right. So at least knowing that you are yourself when you go into those interview phases, you're more likely to land somewhere that actually resonates with who you are as a person as well.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously the lesson was then show them who you are, not just what you do. The
Mm,
technicals will get you foot in the door, but your mindset and your character will keep you in the room. And I guess that will be the journey to leadership, and that's what separates you, you know,
mm,
not just doing the work, but really being able to understand, how to build those relationships, how to leverage those relationships, giving, thinking about impact, not just for yourself. Like, is this work going to move the needle in terms of the company as well, or is this just work that's gonna solve my problem? Don't hide, you know?
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's really insightful. I'm sure that people will take a lot away from particularly that bit, because it's hard to always think about what the soft skills are that relate to some of these interviews. So, obviously, you did a lot to prepare for this. You went through the technical stages, the behavioral interviews, everything else that you did as well. What if somebody here were actually preparing for an interview at GitHub, AWS, or one of the other big tech companies? What piece of advice would you give to them?
I'll say, I guess, from just a personal point of view, know your story, know your why in tech, why that company, why now. So my story is I came from a village in Kenya. I didn't really speak English. I lost my father quite early on. I became a carer at 21. My mother got ill, became a guardian for my younger sister. All of this at the time were difficult, but I think they really kind of prepared me to kind of think about impact because I was advocating very early for my mother. I applied for secondary school for my sister. I took her all the way to university. And I was doing that whilst I'm also learning and going to university myself. So I would say your life circumstances, there's a source of power in that. And for me, I lean back into where I came from. And that's why tech is such a big tool for me because I've seen what it can do, and it gets me really emotional because and that's why I think access is so important in tech because people like me need to be in tech. People like yourselves need to be in tech because we've got so much kind of transferable skills. We've got so much stories to bring. So know that and be able to really like showcase that because people don't just they invest in you. So if you're able to show why you're doing something beyond just the financial or your personal gain, then you stand out, you'll be able to stand out more. And I guess big tech interviews are designed to test more than just knowledge. They test alignment. So I guess for you, do the self-work, reflect, prep, don't be afraid to bring your full self into that room. That is your edge. And for me, I found my edge is that cross between, I'm very passionate about my roots, but I'm also quite modern. And I think trying to bring those two, more modern or Eurocentric in terms of, having lived here for a long time. So that exposure helps me in terms of where my roots and to get back to my roots and with more purpose and having a fresh perspective of my roots because I've been exposed. So I'm sure if you're an immigrant or if you're from the diaspora, that is also your power because you've got so much to bring. Yeah. So I guess know your why. Your storytelling is your superpower. And then also the practical stuff like your career journal, like as I said, my rolling doc, LinkedIn, we all know that. Engage, share. Don't just like expect, don't just build network based on what you can get. Also build linear networks. Linear? Oh, what's that word? Not
Oh,
just
yeah,
not
linear.
hierarchical. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
peers. Yeah.
Yeah, don't just think about, oh, this person can get me here, but you never know where your peers can get you too. And I just, yeah, just comment, share, just look at your CV every 3 months, you know. And I guess that rolling document will be what will help your CV, rather than starting from scratch. Whatever you're doing, just keep a tracking record of it. We've got so much tools nowadays where you can kind of use AI to help you manage that process.
I do really want to know a bit more about this rolling document. So, what sort of things have you put in it? What
I
should
mean, I
people
can show you. I can try and see if I can show you. It's just
maybe show
different.
it to us afterwards because I'm going to have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
But
it's just so the rolling document is just
yeah,
like projects, things that I'm doing. So like with AWS, so weekly, what I would do is on a weekly basis. And I
mm,
guess this was also encouraged by the way AWS is as well. I already had that practice in a way, but I guess working at AWS really sharpened it in terms of those metrics, data-driven stuff, actually adding some metrics, not just fluffy language. That's where I think that experience working with AWS really helped me to think about metrics, metrics, metrics. So yeah, it would just be about some of the projects I've done, what went well, what I learned, what I'll do better next time, so that it's just easily transferred into the star format when you need examples.
oh, that's such a good idea. So I guess understand that helps with the storytelling, doesn't it? So you can then always refer back to that and tell your stories. One thing that I was going to ask as well was around your authenticity that we've spoken about and bringing yourself and if you are from the diaspora, or if you're an immigrant, so on. Does your CV express any of that? Because obviously you're going in there with your technical skills that will be on your CV, where you've worked, what you've done. How could somebody look at your CV and know actually a bit more about you? Does yours show anything like that?
Your LinkedIn is your online CV. So I think that's where you would really showcase who you are. Obviously with a CV, I mean you can also have a website, you can create a website as well. That could be like a digital CV, which is what I was kind of thinking about in terms of my personal brand, is actually creating something website where I can actually document my journey. So thinking obviously now we're in the digital age, obviously your CV is just one page or two page, just tech stuff, but you can have other stuff to support that. So LinkedIn, really working on your LinkedIn, having a clear sort of with some metrics as well. I'm gonna rework my LinkedIn too. I say that because it's a continuous journey of just reworking it based on where you are at. And then maybe having a website. And then all of your social media, as I said in the beginning, I'm kind of really reflecting back and thinking about curating my social media. So it's more kind of geared towards what I care about. And right now, I care about, the tech community, really building thought leadership and taking people along with me and thinking about access and what that looks like. So that's how I'm going to curate my social media because that's also your online CV.
Awesome, thank you. I think one of the things that I also that would be good to talk about is also that beginning of your career. So we've spoken a bit now about how you got into the industry. You've been in tech what for about five years now, haven't you?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
coming up 5 years. So
yeah, 5
2020, that
years.
was my upskilling year. So 2021 was when I
Yeah.
started in terms of job.
So what do you wish you knew when you were starting out? What was it like when you were getting started in tech? And how would you tell other people to try and make an impact at the beginning of their careers as well?
Get rid of perfectionism. I'm a bit of an overthinker, so I had to really because when you go into a place like AWS, there's so much clever people, like seriously, and sometimes there's people that want to show their cleverness where they're not really helpful. They just want to just be clever and have information and use information as a tool. So I would say get rid of perfection and comparison. You with the technical journey, it's a continuous journey. You will never know everything. So I guess I wish I knew that it was okay not to know everything. You don't need to prove yourself by being perfect. You prove yourself by being curious, teachable, and dependable. So again, go back to the soft skills. So your soft skills is key. That will then anchor your technical skills.
Mhm.
Again, for me, a key strategy was documenting my work, that live document, tracking projects. I can't keep saying that enough. Yeah, just that project I worked on, skills gain and challenges I overcame. I guess it helped me speak more confidently during like performance reviews and interviews, and I made it a point to ask questions and connect with people across teams. So I would say, yeah, like tech isn't just for the clever people. Like we're, as I said, we're all problem solvers by the virtue of even our journey. You know, if you are an immigrant, um, you've seen your mum do so much, or your parents do so much. You've left everything that you've known. Like in itself, that is what tech is about: problem solving, being curious, um, progress over perfection. I can't say that enough. Every small little thing that you do adds to that knowledge, and that consistency is what is important. Um, yeah, in terms of that rolling document, create your own success portfolio. As I said, it can be a website, it can be just a rolling document that you then turn into. So, for example, I'm thinking about I'm ambassador um for the CBF, and one of the things that I'm thinking about is not just delivering events, it's like some tangible stuff that we can give people to take away. So I'm thinking about maybe creating some form of templates that will help people in terms of that job hunting journey. So understanding these are the type of roles, this is, where there are different access points, these are the different communities. So that's just that journey so people can make informed decisions. That's something I'm thinking about doing. So yeah,
Thing
so
that we would find very useful in working with you on, because it's people knowing where they want to go based on what they can already do or what they already like is a question that we get all of the time. And questions about mentors. You mentioned mentors, communities, and safe spaces to grow. What are they? Where do people go, and how do they find them? In reality, we can all say find a mentor, but what does it actually mean to find a mentor, and how do you do it?
yeah.
We did have that message in that question in the chat actually, so it'd be good to maybe elaborate a little bit on that as well. Where do you find mentors? How do you go about getting one?
So for me, that also starts. Let me actually, I was going to say at the end, but I think it actually fits in right now, and I'll probably mention it at the end. So for me, the journey starts with giving before you gain. And I think there is that kind of tendency to just ask for mentorship for the sake of it. But I think, as I said before, is really kind of thinking about what is your end goal, what is the outcome you want to achieve, and then working backward so that when you do have, because mentorship is time, your time and their time, so you need to be able to think about what is it that I'm trying, so you can communicate that clearer, and then it's easier for somebody to pour into you because they know exactly what you want. So going back to an example, so I'm also part of different communities, like for example, Color in Tech, and they kind of do as CBF do like collaborative events with big companies. So they had one with Apple where they were trying to do more of a curated private event. So you had to send in your CV, and then Apple would then review your CV, and based on that, they would then either invite you to come. So it was 2 weeks ago at Battersea Power Station, and I was invited. At that time I had already knew that I got the job at GitHub, so I wasn't necessarily looking for a job. For me, it was just that kind of networking and building relationships, even when you're not looking for a job. So I went, I spoke to various different people, and one of the recruiters actually emailed me. And on, I think it was Wednesday or Tuesday, he asked me if he can have me maybe some time to just, see where I'm at, if I'm looking for a job, and also give some feedback. I wasn't looking for a job, but I said, you know what? For me, I don't like transactional relationships. I think I'm really about building relationships. So I really seek to give first before I gain. So I gave him half an hour of my time. I gave him real, real great feedback. One that's related to real representation, because there was a lady that was vice she was vice president of marketing and sales. And for me, seeing her bring her full authentic self, because sometimes as Black people, generally we might feel like we have to be somebody else to fit into these corporate spaces. And for me, true representation means that you can go into a space and bring your full self. You don't have to leave your culture. I used to wear all of these kind of stuff to Amazon, and people be like, oh my God, you always look so good at work. I'm like, yeah. So I didn't want to forgo my African culture just because I'm going to work, because this is what, for me, I think it's beautiful. So things like that, and just her personality, I just felt like she was still her true self. Like she would be like that with her friends. And I think that's what representation is. Like, it's not just about a Black face. It's about obviously having the talent, but also allowing, or you as a choosing to be yourself and not having to, you know, obviously professionalism, but not having to change who you are, or because you feel like this is the personality that will get more. So, and then I gave him some feedback about how best to do an a more practical session. And he was really, really thankful in terms of what I gave. And, you know, he considered actually implementing some of the stuff. So I say that to say I didn't want anything from him. I gave him because I felt like generally I was part of that space, and feedback is important, and also just building that relationship. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing. It's something that, people are always like, how do I get a mentor? But actually, providing somebody else with something first can be a really good way to focus on it, see it as like relationship building rather than I need help. But actually, I want to build a new relationship with somebody who's in a field that I want to move into or that can support future goals potentially. Really, really good idea, really powerful as well. So now if we look at when you were working at AWS, you're obviously looking at moving up the ladder, developing your own skills. How did you position yourself for career development, career progression within AWS?
So I was quite intentional. I said yes to stretch opportunity. So I was in the S3 team, storage team. So a lot of the times I was in America. So working with different part teams of the S3 team, um, to understand sort of the whole S3 um process. So I worked with my last project actually was really one that I put myself into, was a rack maintenance project, automating rack maintenance. So, you know, that server management. And then actually with GitHub, obviously I'm in the physical infrastructure team, I was able to really talk about that, because that's where they are actually, what they're doing is automating or optimizing their current infrastructure and then thinking about expansion. So everything I had done in AWS was transferable, and that was because I said yes to stretch opportunities. And in terms of working with a senior engineer to work on a big, big project of automating our racks. So that was a big, big stretch opportunity that I got, which was I was able to translate into my next role. I didn't wait to be ready. I learned what I was doing. I actually also actively sought feedback. I would just, you know, if engineers were sitting down, I built really great relationship. As I said, I've got an alumni of over 120 engineers in my phone on WhatsApp from Amazon, which I can leverage, because I kind of, that curiosity, I would walk up to an engineer, oh, what are you doing? And even in the elevators, I would be like, hey, like, how are you? Just really building those relationships by being interested with people, and then interested in what people are doing. And then when there are projects that will come along, it's easier for people to think about you. So yeah, I made sure that I was visible, not in necessarily a loud way, although my attire, but in just a consistent way, giving before I gain. And I kept my manager in the loop about my goals. And I also did things outside of just my role. So I was part of the Women at Board in our program. I also mentored other interns. So although I was on my journey, I didn't stop giving back, because this all made um my sort of uh process of growing much easier, for people to
Mhm.
see that I'm not just contributing to myself, I'm also thinking about how I can contribute on a wider scale to Amazon.
So it's kind of like being visible internally as well, right? So building your network still, interacting with people, actually being useful within your career. I think there's a view that there can be a view sometimes that we should just do the things that we've been given to do and not try anything else. But actually, that's part of the way that you grew, and then that experience has helped you to get jobs elsewhere as well.
Yeah,
Um,
and talking to your manager as well, like being clear on
yeah.
this is what I'm trying to achieve, and then what, but also you spending time knowing that what are you trying to achieve? Like, do you just want to get a promotion as quickly as possible? Or do you want to actually like have knowledge base, increase your knowledge and before you go to that promotion stage? So just really having that relationship with your manager as well and advocating for yourself, meaning going out and finding opportunities and going back to your manager and say, this is why I want to do it because it aligns with this, it aligns with that. So yeah.
How do you do all of that without burning out? So you're in a new job, or you're in a job, whether it's new or not, and you're trying to expand what you do beyond your standard role. How do you then not take on too much that you're like, actually, I can't do all of this?
So for me, because I had already been doing this outside of work, for me, advocating for others or was always something that I was going to do. And that's where thinking about the work that you're doing, is this work impactful in that it's going to move the needle forward in if I build this tool, how many people are going to use it? So then therefore I'm going to take that stretch opportunity. Whereas if you're just doing something because you think it looks good, so you need to really review and reflect with your manager as well, so that your manager can actually go back. Maybe you're taking on too much, or how does this? So I think it's really about you first
Mhm.
understanding the business objective, your own personal objectives, looking at the resource you have, which is your manager, who can just help you to understand how best to go about it. And even sometimes free up some time if that thing is gonna triple X,
Mhm.
or it's gonna, make sure that operations people we're not doing so manual operations. So yeah, just understanding what you're trying to do, thinking about the business objective, your personal objective, using your manager to really help you flesh that out. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I think so. Basically, don't go it alone. You
yeah,
can have all these ideas, but work through it with somebody else, kind of in a way that a mentor would support you, is how your
yeah,
manager would, making sure that you actually do it in the right way,
yeah,
and maybe understand what your limitations are as well, so that you don't overdo anything.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and that's actually really useful because what we tend to get asked a lot is what skills should people actually be focusing on? So, you've gone in somewhere, you're trying to develop yourself, you're trying to grow, trying to do a bit of everything. But actually maybe learning random language that you'll never use anywhere else may not be so useful. But what was most valuable for you, both on the technical and the soft skill side? What did you find most beneficial for your career growth?
so I'll say you need to learn Linux no matter what. Linux is the foundation. I'm also just refreshing my learning. So learning Linux cloud as well, because everything's going to be in the cloud. So AWS, Azure, and GCP. So whichever one you choose. And I think for me, I done some understanding. Okay, so I worked with Google at the time. I think ChatGPT wasn't there at the time. So in the same way that it is now, like, what is the most used operating system in enterprise? And then Linux came up. So that's why I chose Linux.
Yeah.
AWS came. So it was just really understanding what is actually currently being used in terms of the business context, and then thinking about that as a sort of like your foundation. And then from there, once you've got the foundation, you can then think about, what's my specialism. So now I'm thinking about what do I want to specialize in, because you can't know everything. And that for me is offensive security. So I'm going down cybersecurity, I'm doing my CompTIA, blah, blah, blah. So automation and infrastructure. So as code, so you can do projects to be able to enhance this, not just learning the fundamentals, but now applying. And that's where I am at doing outside projects and stuff like that, documenting and learning what operational excellence looks like, so to speak, and that's understanding workflow, and yeah, think about operational bottlenecks and how you can um, create projects that showcase this, for example. So I would say, yeah, Linux, cloud, automation and infrastructure as code, and operational excellence and documentation.
Mm.
Those are
I
the
would
technical.
say Linux has not gone away as a very important thing. I remember when I started my first job, like in 2008, I started my first job, and I'd only ever used Windows, and they sat me down in front of a computer and it was like, do these things in Linux. And I was like, in what? I've never even heard of it. And I went home and I installed Linux on my machine, and I was like, everything you do from now on is going to be in Linux so that you understand exactly how to do everything. And it sounds like you did something similar. You've gone really deep in understanding or doing that self-learning, and developing yourself so that when you're in work, it becomes just a bit easier to get on with. But you chose the right topics as well.
Yeah, and it's a continuous journey. Yeah, and soft skills, as I said,
Mm.
being able communication, being able to simplify. That's one of them. Amazon's event and simplify. Yeah, emotional intelligence, reading the room, adapting to feedback, and relationship building. I invest in people, not just problems, I guess, for me. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, tech skills got me in the door, front door, but soft skills helped me stay, and it's
Yeah.
going to help me grow.
Do you know how could you tell someone to develop their soft skills? So I think developing your technical skills, self-learning courses, easy almost. But soft skills, how does someone develop their soft skills to do well when they're in the workplace?
Um, so one in terms of communication is just really being curious,
Mhm.
and really first of all, maybe just reflecting on yourself, like how do you communicate first and foremost? How do you build relationships? So doing that, I guess, reflection or review of where you currently are, in terms of some of the key things that will help you to build relationship, which is just communication. um, if you're an introvert, you don't necessarily have to be an extrovert. You you can use your introversy in the, just think about what you're really good at and just have a curiosity for people and do that reflection first on where you're at and how do you normally do these things that communicate, where how do you think about partnership? So just like your mindset first, do a mindset check. Like how do you think about these things? Maybe rate yourself. It's just a personal exercise. And then maybe think about some of the people that you connect to in terms of key things, like, maybe a YouTuber. I don't know, someone that where they engage you. Why do they engage you? Write down these key things. And then from that personal review, that external review, then think about what are the key things that are important in terms of, um, your career trajectory that you want to focus on, whether that's communication. For me, I'm trying to build my personal public speaking, hence why I'm taking this opportunity to do public speaking. So yeah, just challenge yourself, reflect, review, and then also, yeah, that's where mentorship becomes important as well. And then yeah, just start to put yourself out there and do things that you wouldn't normally do. Let's say hello to somebody in the lift. You're not gonna die. It's okay.
Mm. I think it's so important to build relationships when you're in the workplace, um, whether it's after work or during work. I think it's actually really important to have a network of people that you know there as well. That's actually, I feel like we've covered so many things, from how you get into the industry, really focusing on the technical and the soft skills, and how you can really bring yourself to it, and then how you progress through the industry as well. Within all of it, it feels as though we've covered up a lot around that authenticity. The technical has kind of covered off in both ways, that's really important. However, the soft skills are super important as well. With all of that in mind and everything that you covered, for those who are looking to enter and maybe, move up within the industry, what's one piece of advice, and it can be more than one if you want it to be, what piece of advice would you give to anyone who's trying to achieve long-term success?
Yeah, these are just something. Um, I would say, yeah, build a portfolio. As I said, of value, not just tasks. So, like right now, we've got, we're in the age of AI and AI agents, and find community. Think about hackathons. What is your narrative, and that's where your personal brand comes in. You know, build community, not just connections. And that's where I was talking about the Apple story. I'm not
Mhm.
trying to necessarily, just build more of a network. It's like, what can I add to the network that I already have? Um, I guess, yeah, purpose and integrity. So my story of where I come from shapes how I do things. And for me, and it keeps me grounded and it keeps me remembering, like, I didn't even speak English. So for me, it's like, that grounding comes from understanding where I've come from and then being curious with where I want to go, and keeping community and people at the heart of that.
Mhm. Thank you. That's going to be super valuable to everybody. So, with the visionary that you are, I'm sure that you have some key, that this has been like a running thing throughout the whole conversation, but these are your key mantras, I guess. Which one would you lean on more, or how would you try and push this out to people to be beneficial to them?
I'll say the last one. Just
Hmm.
always your strategy.
Yeah.
Um, just because um if your story, there's so much power in who you are,
Mhm.
right? And understanding that can then help you make better decision about where you're going. Why GitHub for me? Because of
Yeah.
what they're doing. They're building the largest developer platform in the world, which is powering solutions. Why would I not want to be part of that? You know,
Mhm.
data center is the foundation of what is powering everything. Why would I not want to contribute to that?
Mhm.
So for me, yeah, technical, but it's also the mission about that technical. So yeah. So that's why I feel like your story is your strategy because my story is what drives what I do and how I do it and the mission that I'm connected to.
Yeah, and it's been a constant throughout everything that you've done as well. We did
Mhm.
touch on mentorship before as well, so that giving before getting, and making sure that things are done in a very authentic and real way, I guess, around that relationship building. Um, what are your, I guess, key things that you would say to people around giving before getting, and how they can achieve that as well?
Um, so yes, I would say just don't always look at people as an opportunity for yourself, look at it as an opportunity to, really understand what are some of their pain points, what is actually like they're struggling with, and that could help you. You might have the answers, and even if you don't have the answers, just having that conversation, that curiosity, and whenever you are in spaces, like whether it's CBF, think about how you can communicate, even if it's just a job that you see, maybe just share that so that you become memorable through the little things that you do, you know? So as I say, yeah, be the person that people remember for your insight, not just for your ambition. I'm a very ambitious person, but I also like to give a lot of information. If I see something, I watch, like I don't know, I've got a capacity for learning because I just love learning. I love just understanding how things work. And that's my superpower because I've got the capacity to do it. Some people might not. So for me, maybe my the goal for that is translating that learning into something that's digestible for somebody that might not be able to like stick around and read long ass stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much. We have had a lot of questions.
yeah.
Whilst we answer the question, I'm going to put up the key takeaways so that people can have a look at that, and then maybe we can run over them at the end. But let's have a look to see what people have been asking you. Um, mm, mm, mm. So we do have one here. So we've got many people who have said congratulations to you. Congratulations, and heartfelt congratulations from me as well. It's been fantastic watching everything that you've achieved. Um, so we've got a two questions here. What made you decide to go for Amazon instead of GitHub initially? So you made that decision, earlier on, that that was the company you're going to go for. What was it that was different for you?
As I said earlier, it was more about knowing that I don't come from a technical background. I haven't done computer science. I come from a non-technical background. So in my journey I wanted to be in a company that has the resources to be able to support my learning journey. And obviously AWS being, a leader in that space and having so much access to resources such as certifications, that was part of the reason why. And I was just interested in how a company, obviously AWS had come and just changed so
Mhm.
much. So I wanted to be part of, and I just wanted to understand that really and be part
Yeah,
of that. So yeah, it was an intentional decision based on my journey and wanting to learn and grow quicker.
really important to know what it is you want to achieve, right? So that you can really start applying that. There's a follow-on question to that around whether you've got any type of, if you're neurodivergent at all, and if you were, was there any support available for you when you were going through interviews at like Amazon, at GitHub as well? Did they provide anything?
Yeah, I would say I'm not neurodivergent myself, but even from in the application stages now, there's much more of efforts to, I guess, capture that from earlier stage, from even the application. So I think there's companies that are doing much better in terms
Mhm.
of understanding or what are the barriers that people are facing and how can we start to take them away as early as the application stages. There's still more work to be done, and I think it only will be there when we have more representation, not within every sector, because there's only so much I can do. If I'm not neurodivergent, I don't know some of the ways in which to push accessibility per se. I can have all the, so that's why it's important to have representation from different from people within those communities because they have the personal experience and knowledge to be able to understand how to shape that. But I think companies are doing much better in terms of trying to capture that from the application stage.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So actually be willing to declare that in the beginning, because actually it could be there so that you can gain some support later on as well whilst you're being interviewed as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So we do have another one. So we have somebody who is Simar, an immigrant student living in Canada. Although I have 2+ years of experience in front-end development and some back-end knowledge as well, I was thinking of moving on learning AWS or cloud computing. Um, can you give any tips or roadmap on what they could do further to further grow in that field?
What I would say is even myself, this is where like AI and ChatGPT becomes really a useful tool. So even for myself the other day, I just put in, I want to I think let me try and see if I can find the prompt. Act as a career coach in your role. So give it a role, give it like certain responsibilities. So I want you to for example, I gave it, I want to have a focus on cybersecurity. Please help me create a learning pathway that will first make sure that I have the fundamentals in terms of the senior system engineer, and then help me to develop, a cybersecurity focus in terms of offensive security. So I would say use Chat GPT or AI tools to help you talk to it to help you formulate a learning path with resources and links, even if there's sometimes you have to pay for stuff. So yeah, I used that to help me formulate my next journey. I would also say CBF have loads of events, communities have loads of events where you can get a taster or an understanding of what others are doing, and then use that information to come back to yourself and then formulate that journey. So I'll say AI is your friend, events, curated events, really look at what is happening in the year. That's a year, and how can I get involved in that? And maybe just start using your LinkedIn, talking, having conversation. This is what I'm thinking. This is where I'm at. Because you'll find that there's so many people that might be there. I want to do more of that, and that's what authentic engagement on LinkedIn is. Like, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm thinking of making a pivot. Does anyone have some advice, or what? This is what I've done. So yeah, so use your network, the communities that are available, and also the tools like ChatGPT AI to help you formulate once you have an understanding of what you're trying to do.
Incredible, thank you. We had a similar question for somebody who was working, who wanted to figure out their path from a non-technical to being a cloud engineer or DevOps engineer. And it feels like same sort of answer, right? That, utilize those tools that are out there that can help you to move in the right direction. We've had quite a lot of questions around, or we've had a couple of questions around your rolling document. I think maybe, we're at time nearly, we're a couple of minutes away from the end of the session, but maybe what we could do is share a version of your working document, your rolling document afterwards, so that people can have a look. You've also got another document that we can share as well that provides some really key takeaways for people. But it's been an absolutely incredible session, Lydia. You've shared so much, and you've been sharing stuff constantly anyway. I see everything you're sharing in the WhatsApp groups, making sure that people know exactly what they can do to progress their own skills. And that's incredible. So thank you so much for supporting the community in that way anyway. I don't know if you've got any key takeaways that you would like to give, other than, you've got your list here, but is there anything else you'd like to add for people before we wrap up the session?
Yeah, I would say just don't be scared of what's happening in the future. I know it's overwhelming right now, even myself. I'm still on that continuous learning journey. Um, just really think about what is your mission? What are you trying to achieve with tech? And then work backwards. That's what I would say. And that would help you focus in more. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing. There's an opportunity now for us to really come find our niches, because with AI and agents, all of the stuff that we were preoccupying about, they can do. Who wants to sit down and start thinking about a framework? We can actually do real, like, quality stuff. So I would say think about your mission, work backwards, and engage with communities.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
think about how you can give before you gain.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Always
Yeah.
a pleasure. And it's been incredible to catch up with you again. I met you in 2020. We then did a podcast episode together a few years ago, talking about your journey as well and how that can support people. And I know this time, especially everything else that you've gone through since then, is going to be super useful to everyone who gets to listen to you today.
And thank you, Charlene. Thank you for the CBF community. You are actually what I mean when I say representation. You have such a vibrant personality. You're a boss yourself, but you just come across very down to earth, and I appreciate you. You've been sort of like a non mentor for me. So thank you for all you do in terms of the community. It's not easy. It's hard work. But it's also helped me on my journey. So I will always give back to CBF.
Thank you so much. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, ending on a note that makes me get a little bit emotional. But no, thank you, honestly. And
Welcome.
everyone who joined today as well. Really appreciate everyone that's here.
You.
Thank you. Careers Week is one session away, but you've been incredible, and I look forward to everything that's going to follow after this.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Kim.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.